Close your eyes and place your hand gently on your chest. Feel the steady rhythm there, the quiet rise and fall that has accompanied you through every moment of your life. Now, imagine that same rhythm playing out beneath you, not in seconds, but across millions of years. The earth breathes too, and tonight you're going to feel its ancient pulse, beneath the pillow that cradles your head, beneath the floor that holds your bed, beneath layers of soil and stone that stretch down into darkness. The planet's heart beats with a patience that makes mountains. This is not the quick flutter of a bird's wing or the steady tick of a clock. This is the breath of geological time, where each inhale might last 10 million years, and each exhale reshapes continents. You are lying on the surface of a living world, one that has been breathing since long before the first creatures learned to dream. The Earth's breath is not made of air, but of rock and fire, of pressure and heat that moves through the planet's body like blood through your veins. Right now, as you settle into comfort, this ancient circulation continues its endless work, carrying pieces of ocean floor toward the sky, transforming valleys into peaks with the gentleness of a parent tucking in a child. Think of the ground beneath your home not as solid and still, but as part of an enormous, slow-moving chest. The continents are like patches of skin that rise and fall with each breath, so gradually that entire species are born and fade away between one movement and the next. The Rocky Mountains, the Himalayas, the gentle hills outside your window. Oh, of them are expressions of this breathing, caught in moments of the Earth's long, slow inhalation. Your heart beats roughly 70 times each minute, creating the rhythm that sustains your life. The Earth's heart beats perhaps once every 100 million years, creating the rhythm that sustains entire mountain ranges. Yet both rhythms are part of the same universal pulse, the same tendency for matter to organize itself into patterns of creation and renewal. Scientists call this process plate tectonics, but the name hardly captures the poetry of what's actually happening. Imagine the Earth's surface as a collection of enormous rafts, each one carrying forests and cities, oceans and deserts, all floating on a sea of slowly moving rock. These rafts drift across the planet's surface at the speed your fingernails grow, so slowly that you could never notice their movement in a human lifetime, yet so persistently that they have redrawn the map of the world countless times. As you breathe in, feel your chest expand, making room for the air that will nourish your body. In the same way, the Earth's chest expands as hot rock rises from deep within, creating new seafloor in the middle of oceans, pushing continents apart to make room for this planetary breath. And just as you must exhale to make room for the next breath, the Earth exhales too, drawing old seafloor back down into its depths, recycling the stone like you recycle the air. This breathing creates a conversation between the planet's surface and its deep interior, a conversation that has been going on for over 4 billion years. Hot material rises, carrying with it the heat of the Earth's formation, the memory of cosmic collisions that created this world. As it reaches the surface, it cools and spreads, becoming the foundation for new landscapes. Then, grown heavy with time and distance from its source, it sinks back down, carrying with it samples of the surface world, grains of sand that once knew sunshine, shells that once housed living creatures, drops of ancient rain. The rhythm of this process is written in the rocks around you. Every stone has a story about pressure and temperature, about journeys through the Earth's interior and returns to the surface. The granite in mountain peaks whispers of times when it was liquid, flowing like a river of light through the darkness. Below, the limestone in your garden remembers when it was a coral reef, growing in warm seas that covered what is now dry land. Your body participates in this same cycle of renewal. The calcium in your bones was once part of distant stars, and before that, it traveled through the Earth's interior, part of the planet's slow circulation. The iron in your blood has journeyed from the core of the earth to the surface, through plants and animals, and finally to you. You are not separate from the earth's breathing. You are part of it. A brief and beautiful expression of the same creative force that builds mountains and carves valleys as you settle deeper into rest. Imagine yourself sinking gently into the earth's embrace, feeling the warmth that still radiates from the planet's formation. This is not a cold, dead rock beneath you, but a living world that continues to grow and change, that breathes with the same essential rhythm that moves through all of creation. Your heartbeat and the earth's heartbeat are synchronized across time, part of the same ancient song. The continents drift like sleepy giants, carrying their cargo of life across the planet's surface. They have traveled incredible distances in their slow dance, bringing together creatures that could never otherwise meet, separating others who must learn to evolve in isolation. The Atlantic Ocean grows wider each year, just slightly, as the Earth breathes in. The Pacific grows smaller as the Earth breathes out. This is the planet's way of staying alive, of continuing the conversation between its molten heart and its living surface. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you can feel this conversation continuing in the stillness. The ground beneath you is not static, but part of an enormous, patient circulation that connects every place on Earth to every other place, every moment in time to every other moment. The mountain ranges are temporary expressions of this breathing, destined to be worn away and rebuilt in different forms, just as your own body is constantly rebuilding itself, cell by cell, breath by breath. The Earth's breathing creates the stage upon which all other stories unfold. It determines where oceans form and where mountains rise, where deserts spread and where forests grow. This slow pulse has been the heartbeat behind every moment of life on this planet, the steady rhythm that has supported the evolution of countless species, including your own. And now, as your own breathing slows and deepens, you become part of this ancient rhythm, your rest supported by the same forces that have been shaping the world for billions of years. The Earth continues its patient breathing beneath you, and somewhere in that vast circulation of rock and time, the raw materials for tomorrow's mountains are beginning their slow journey toward the surface. Imagine the most gentle embrace you've ever received, arms that wrap around you slowly, carefully, with infinite patience and tenderness. Now stretch that moment across 50 million years, and you begin to understand how continents come together to create mountains. Tonight, you're going to witness the most patient love story ever told, a romance written in stone and time. Beneath you, where the rivers of molten rock have been flowing through geological ages, two ancient lands are moving toward each other. They have been traveling for millions of years, crossing vast oceans of time, guided by the Earth's slow breathing that you felt in your chest just moments ago. Their meeting is inevitable, but it will be the gentlest collision in the universe. Then so slow that it makes the growth of trees look frantic. These are not the violent crashes you might imagine when you hear the word collision. There are no explosions, no sudden impacts that shake the world. Instead, picture two enormous dancers approaching each other across a ballroom the size of the planet, each step taking 1,000,000 years, each gesture so gradual that mountains have time to grow between the lifting of one foot and the placing of the next. The continents that approach each other are ancient beyond imagination. One carries on its back the memories of tropical seas and ice ages, of creatures that lived and died while it drifted slowly across the Earth's surface. The other bears the scars of volcanoes and the gentle accumulation of countless seasons of rain and snow. They are like two old souls who have journeyed far to find each other, carrying within their rocky hearts all the stories of their separate travels. As you rest in the darkness, feel the anticipation that builds over geological time. The ocean between these continental dancers grows smaller year by year, century by century. The seafloor that separates them is slowly being consumed, drawn down into the Earth's interior, like a carpet being rolled up to clear the dance floor. This process happens so gradually that entire mountain ranges rise and fall on the continent's surfaces while they continue their approach. When the edges of the continents finally touch, the contact is softer than a whisper. There is no moment of impact, no definable instant when collision begins. Instead, the land starts to compress like a slow-motion embrace, rock folding into rock with the tenderness of lovers' fingers intertwining. The Earth's crust begins to buckle upward, responding to the gentle pressure like a sleeping person pulling blankets closer in the night. This is how the Himalayas were born, when India drifted northward for millions of years and finally embraced Asia. This is how the Appalachians formed, when Africa and North America came together in an ancient dance that lasted longer than life has existed on land. These mountains are love letters written in stone, testaments to the patience of geological romance. As the continental embrace deepens, the land between the approaching masses begins to rise. Layers of rock that once lay flat start to fold like blankets being pushed together from opposite sides. Some layers bend gently, creating rolling hills that will someday become foothills. Others fold more dramatically, their sedimentary stripes tilting toward the sky like the pages of a book being slowly closed. The pressure builds so gradually that it never feels violent. Rock that seems solid and unchanging to your human perception flows like thick honey under this patient squeeze. Entire mountain ranges can be compressed, their peaks pushed higher while their roots sink deeper into the earth, like a sponge being gently pressed. The stones that form these peaks have time to adjust, to find new configurations, to crystallize into different forms under the slow, warm pressure of continental affection. Deep beneath the growing mountains, the collision creates chambers of heat and pressure where new minerals are born. Limestone transforms into marble under the gentle influence of this embrace. Sandstone becomes quartzite, its grains welded together by the patient pressure of continents and love. These transformations happen in darkness and silence, the earth rewriting its own substance in response to the slow dance happening far above. As the mountains rise from this continental courtship, they create their own weather patterns. The air that once flowed freely across flat land now must climb these new peaks, cooling as it rises, dropping its moisture as snow and rain. The growing mountains begin to influence the very climate that surrounds them, creating the conditions that will eventually wear them away. This is part of the dance, too, the understanding that even the most permanent seeming embrace must eventually yield to time. Rivers are born from this collision, flowing down the flanks of the rising peaks, carrying stories of the heights too, the valleys below. These waterways carve channels that will become the arteries of the new landscape, defining where life will flourish in the changed world. The continental embrace creates not just mountains, but entire ecosystems, new patterns of weather and water that will support countless generations of living things. The collision continues long after the first peaks appear. The continents keep pressing together, their momentum carrying them forward for millions of years after their initial contact. Mountains continue to grow, their peaks reaching higher into the thin air, their roots extending deeper into the warm earth. The dance of collision becomes the dance of ongoing creation. As the embrace deepens and the landscape continues to transform, some mountains form when pieces of the ocean floor are caught between the colliding continents, lifted high above sea level, like flowers pressed between the pages of a giant book. These peaks carry within them the fossils of ancient sea creatures, shells and corals that once knew only the rhythm of tides, now finding themselves among the clouds. They are witnesses to the power of patient embrace, proof that the gentlest forces can achieve the most dramatic transformations. The collision creates chains of mountains that stretch for thousands of miles, continuous expressions of the continental embrace. Each peak in the chain tells part of the same love story, shaped by the same slow pressure, lifted by the same patient forces. They stand together like dancers frozen in a moment of eternal embrace, their stone faces turned toward the sky. They have been lifted to meet Dot as you drift deeper into sleep. Imagine yourself witnessing this dance from a perspective that spans millions of years. You see the continents approaching like storm clouds gathering on opposite horizons. Feel the anticipation building in the very rocks beneath you. You watch as they finally meet and begin their slow, tender collision, giving birth to peaks that pierce the sky and valleys that cradle rivers yet to flow. This is creation at its most patient, not the sudden flash of lightning, but the gradual gathering of clouds. Not the explosive eruption, but the slow folding of stone into stone. The mountains around you are not monuments to violence, but to persistence. Not records of catastrophe, but chronicles of the most enduring love affair on Earth. And as the continental embrace continues through the night, giving birth to peaks that will stand for millions of years, these new mountains begin to feel the first whispers of their own future, the gentle touch of gravity that will, with infinite patience, begin to bring them back down to the earth. That raised them so high. Listen to the gentle sound of rain beginning to fall outside your window, each droplet a messenger carrying the promise of transformation. Tonight, you'll discover how these tiny ambassadors of change engage in conversations with stone that span centuries, how water teaches the most profound lesson about persistence, that the softest touch, repeated with infinite patience, can reshape the hardest heart. A single raindrop weighs almost nothing less than 1/100th of a gram, lighter than a feather, nearly invisible against the vastness of a mountain face. Yet this tiny sphere of water carries within it the power to move mountains, not through force, but through the gentle persistence of time. As it falls from the sky toward the stone below, it begins a conversation that may continue for thousands of years, a dialogue between the fluid and the solid that will ultimately reshape the world. When the droplet touches the mountain's face, it doesn't bounce away or shatter against the stone. Instead, it pauses, settling into the microscopic valleys and ridges that texture even the smoothest rock surface. In this moment of contact, chemistry begins its quiet work. The water, slightly acidic from its journey through the atmosphere, starts to whisper to the minerals in the stone, asking them gently if they might like to join it on a journey to the sea. Some minerals listen more readily than others. The feldspar crystals that give granite its strength begin to soften under water's patient attention, their chemical bonds loosening like fingers, gradually releasing their grip. The limestone, formed from ancient sea creatures, remembers its origins and responds eagerly to water's invitation to return to liquid form. Even the hardest quartz, seemingly impervious to change, eventually yields small pieces of itself to water's persistent courtship. As you rest in the darkness, imagine this conversation happening on countless surfaces around you. Every stone exposed to moisture is engaged in this slow dance of dissolution and transformation. The process is so gradual that you could watch the same rock face for a lifetime and never see visible change. Yet over geological time, these gentle conversations carve canyons and sculpt valleys with an artistry that no human hand could match. The raindrop, now carrying dissolved minerals from its conversation with stone, begins its journey downward. It follows the path of least resistance, joining other droplets in the tiny channels that groove the mountain's surface. These rivulets, each no wider than your finger, are the beginning of something magnificent, the birth of streams that will grow into rivers, rivers that will carve their signatures deep into the earth's surface. Water's victory over stone is achieved not through violence, but through an understanding of time that humans can barely comprehend. Where a hammer might shatter rock into fragments, water simply waits, touching the stone again and again with the same gentle persistence. It works with the mountain's own weight, following the fractures that gravity has created, widening them grain by grain until what was once solid stone becomes a pathway for flowing water, the streams that form from these countless conversations between water and stone become the mountain's new voice. They sing as they flow, their sound changing with the seasons and the weather, sometimes whispered murmurs over smooth pebbles, sometimes joyful gurgles around fallen logs. This music is the mountain speaking through water, telling the story of its gradual transformation from peak to valley, from stone to soil. As the streams gather strength, they begin to carve more boldly into the landscape. They cut channels that start as shallow scratches in the stone, but deepen over millennia into gorges and canyons. Each flood season brings more power, more volume of water, carrying more dissolved minerals and stone fragments. The mountain contributes to its own reshaping, offering loose material to the flowing water like a sculptor, providing clay to an artist. The rivers that grow from these mountain streams become long letters written across the landscape, messages from the heights to the lowlands about the ongoing transformation of stone. They carry their cargo of dissolved minerals and sediment across vast distances, depositing some here, picking up more there, constantly rewriting the story of the land through which they flow. Every bend in a river's course speaks of patience, rewarded, of water's gentle insistence. Gradually overcoming the resistance of stone. Water teaches the mountain about the power of yielding. Where stone tries to hold its shape against all forces, water flows around obstacles, finds alternative paths, adapts its course to the landscape, while simultaneously reshaping that landscape to suit its needs. This is not compromise but collaboration, a dance between the fluid and the solid that creates some of the most beautiful features on Earth. In the deep valleys carved by patient water, ecosystems flourish that could exist nowhere else. The moisture carried by streams nurtures forests that soften the mountain's harsh stone faces with green life. The sediment deposited by rivers creates fertile soil where meadows bloom in seasonal cycles of color. Water's conversation with stone creates not just new landforms, but new possibilities for life itself. The rivers remember their conversations with the mountains even after they reach the sea. The dissolved minerals they carry will precipitate in the ocean depths, eventually becoming new limestone that may someday be lifted by continental collisions to form future peaks. The sediment they deposit at river mouths will become the foundation for deltas and coastal plains, new land built from the substance of ancient mountains. Even in winter, when water freezes into ice, the conversation with stone continues, but in a different language. Ice expands as it forms, pressing gently but irresistibly against the walls of any crack it occupies. This process, repeated through countless freeze-thaw cycles, slowly widens fractures and splits even the most resistant stone. The mountain learns to accommodate this seasonal breathing of ice and water, adjusting its shape to find harmony with the forces that surround it. The glaciers that sometimes crown the highest peaks are water's most patient sculptors. Rivers of ice that move so slowly, their progress is measured in decades rather than hours. These frozen rivers carve valleys with the thoroughness of master craftsmen, polishing stone surfaces to mirror smoothness and gouging deep basins that will become mountain lakes when the ice finally retreats. They carry enormous boulders for hundreds of miles, like slow-motion messengers delivering gifts from peak to valley. Underground, water continues its conversation with stone in the hidden chambers and passages of cave systems. Here, in total darkness, water dissolves limestone drop by drop, creating underground cathedrals decorated with flowstone formations that grow like frozen waterfalls. These caves are libraries of water's patience, their formations recording thousands of years of gentle, persistent work in the language of calcite and crystal. As you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the sound of all this water, the rain on the roof, the streams in their channels, the rivers in their valleys, the underground flow through hidden caves. This is the sound of transformation happening at the pace of patience, of mountains gradually surrendering their substance to valleys, of stone learning to flow like water through the medium of time. The mountain ranges around you are engaged in this ongoing conversation, their faces constantly touched by water in all its forms. Some peaks resist longer than others, their granite faces standing firm against the gentle assault of weather. Others, built of softer stone, yield more quickly to water's persistent courtship, their slopes rounding and gentling under the influence of countless seasons of rain and snow. Tonight, as you rest in the embrace of gravity and time, water continues its patient work of reshaping the world. Each droplet that falls begins another conversation with stone, another chapter in the endless story of how the softest substance on earth moves the hardest, how persistence overcomes resistance, how patience ultimately shapes every landscape on the planet. And in this ongoing dialogue between water and stone, the stage is set for the ancient stories that lie frozen in ice, where water's power takes on forms that can reshape entire continents. Close your eyes and imagine the world wrapped in the softest, whitest blanket you've ever seen, a blanket of ice that covered continents and sang lullabies to sleeping mountains for thousands upon thousands of years. Tonight, you'll drift back through time to an ancient winter when glaciers moved like gentle giants across the landscape, reshaping valleys with the tenderness of a parent tucking a child into bed. The ice ages were not periods of violence or catastrophe, but times of profound rest when the earth settled into a deeper, slower rhythm. Snow fell season after season, accumulating in the high places where mountains touched the sky. Layer upon layer, year after year, the snow compressed under its own weight, transforming from the delicate crystals that dance on winter winds into something denser, more patient, the blue-white ice that would become the sculptors of continents. These glaciers were rivers that had learned to move with the patience of stone, flowing downhill at the speed of dreams. They advanced not in rushing torrents, but in measured steps, each movement taking years or decades to complete. As they flowed, they sang not with voices you could hear, but with the deep, harmonic creaking and groaning of ice under pressure. A bass note so low it resonated through the bedrock itself. Imagine lying on your side as you sleep, your body conforming to the shape of your bed, finding the most comfortable position for rest. This is how glaciers moved through valleys, not carving violently through stone, but settling into the landscape's natural curves, widening and deepening them with the gentle persistence of countless seasons. The ice flowed like thick honey, following the path of least resistance, while gradually reshaping that path to suit its own needs. The glaciers were storytellers, carrying tales from the mountain peaks to the distant seas. Embedded in their ice were layers that recorded the history of each winter bands of darker ice from years when volcanic ash dimmed the sky, cleaner layers from seasons of pure snowfall, bubbles of ancient air that preserved samples of the atmosphere from thousands of years ago. As they moved, they carried these stories with them, transporting the memories of high places to the valleys below. The ice-polished stone with the patience of a master craftsman, where water might rush over rocks, leaving them rough and angular. The glaciers embraced boulders and bedrock with their full weight, grinding and smoothing surfaces until they gleamed like precious gems. The mountains learned to wear new faces under this frozen embrace-rounded shoulders, where once there had been sharp ridges, smooth-walled valleys, where once there had been narrow gorges. As the glaciers flowed through the landscape, they became gardeners of stone, carefully selecting which rocks to carry and which to leave behind. The ice plucked boulders from cliff faces like a gentle hand picking flowers, embedding them in its frozen matrix and carrying them sometimes hundreds of miles from their origins. These erratics, as scientists would later call them, were gifts from distant peaks, granite boulders resting peacefully in valleys of limestone, Volcanic rocks settled among sedimentary layers, each one a messenger from a far place. The weight of the ice was distributed so evenly across the landscape that even the earth itself responded to its presence. The continental crust, like a mattress compressed by a sleeping form, slowly sank under the glacier's embrace. The planet adjusted its posture to accommodate these frozen rivers, the bedrock flowing slowly downward like thick liquid, finding new equilibrium under the patient pressure of ice dot at the leading edge of each glacier. Where ice met the unfrozen world, there was constant, gentle negotiation. The ice advanced when winters were long and summers cool, retreated when the balance shifted toward warmth. This dance between ice and climate happened so slowly that forests had time to migrate, following the changing boundaries between frozen and temperate worlds. The glaciers were not invaders, but participants in the Earth's long conversation about comfort and change. The ice created its own weather patterns, vast high-pressure systems that spun off storms and shaped the paths of winds. The presence of so much frozen water changed the very air, creating the conditions for its own continuation. This was the Earth experimenting with different ways of being, trying on the costume of an ice age to see how it felt, how it changed. The dance between land and sea, mountain and valley. Beneath the glaciers, protected from the direct touch of ice, rivers continued to flow in tunnels of blue-green light. These subglacial streams carved channels in the bedrock, creating pathways that would become the beds of future rivers when the ice finally retreated. The sound of water flowing beneath miles of ice was like a whispered secret, the planet's way of remembering that, even in the deepest winter, the conversation between liquid and solid continued. The glaciers were teachers of patience, showing the landscape how to change slowly, how to accept transformation without violence. They demonstrated that even the most dramatic reshaping could happen gently, given enough time. Valleys that had been V-shaped from river cutting became U-shaped under the glacier's embrace, their walls smoothed and their floors widened into forms that would cradle lakes when the ice finally departed dot as the Ice Age lullaby played across the continents. It created the conditions for future abundance. The glaciers ground rock into the finest flour, creating the raw material for some of the richest soils on Earth. When they retreated, they left behind landscapes ready for forests and prairies, their gift of fertile ground supporting ecosystems that would flourish for millennia to come. The retreat of the glaciers was as gentle as their advance had been. As the Earth's climate shifted toward warmth, the ice began its slow withdrawal, leaving behind a landscape transformed. The mountains emerged from their frozen sleep with new faces, polished and rounded, marked with the parallel scratches where rocks embedded in ice had drawn lines across, stone surfaces like fingers trailing through sand. Lakes appeared in the Auen, depressions carved by ice, mountain tarns that reflected sky like mirrors set in stone. These alpine lakes were the glacier's final gifts to the peaks they had embraced so long, pools of pure water that would catch clouds and nurture the life that would colonize the newly revealed landscape. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you can still hear echoes of that ancient lullaby in the whisper of wind through mountain passes, in the patient flow of rivers through valleys carved by ice, in the deep silence of high places where glaciers once sang their slow songs to. Sleeping Stone. The Ice Age was not an ending but a gentle intermission in the Earth's long symphony, a time when the planet experimented with stillness and discovered new forms of beauty in the marriage between ice and stone. And even now, in the quiet darkness, the Earth continues to hum with the memory of those frozen rivers, their ancient songs becoming part of the deeper symphony that plays constantly beneath your feet. Lie still and listen to the silence around you. In this quiet moment, you might think the world has gone to sleep, but beneath your resting form, the Earth is singing. It hums with frequencies too low for your waking ears to detect, a bass note so deep it resonates through bedrock and bone, through the very atoms that compose your body. Tonight, you'll discover that you are always surrounded by music, the ancient symphony of a living planet. This underground music has been playing since the Earth first formed, a composition written in the language of shifting stone and moving continents. The instruments of this orchestra are not made of wood and metal, but of rock and crystal, of molten material flowing through the planet's interior, of tectonic plates adjusting their positions in the slow dance you felt earlier. Each movement creates vibrations that travel through the solid Earth. Faster than sound travels through air. The deepest notes in this symphony come from the planet's core, where liquid iron flows in currents that generate the magnetic field protecting you from space radiation. These movements create pressure waves that pulse through the Earth's interior like the beating of an enormous heart. The rhythm is so slow that each beat takes hours to complete, but it never stops, never rests, maintaining the steady pulse that has kept your planet alive for billions of years, not above the core. In the mantle where stone flows like thick honey, convection currents create their own harmonic patterns. Hot material rises from the depths while cooler material sinks, creating circulation patterns that span continents and centuries. These movements generate vibrations that travel through the solid outer layers of the Earth, creating a constant background hum that permeates every stone, every grain of soil beneath your bed. You are lying on the surface of a giant musical instrument, and every movement of your body, every breath you take, creates tiny vibrations that join this planetary symphony. The Earth feels your presence just as you might feel a cat walking across your chest while you sleep, not as a disturbance, but as a gentle addition to the ongoing rhythm of existence. When tectonic plates shift position, they don't break violently, but adjust gradually, like you shifting position in your sleep to find a more comfortable arrangement of limbs and blankets. Most of these adjustments happen so slowly that they create no vibrations you could feel. But sometimes, when the accumulated stress of years or decades finally releases, the Earth settles into its new position with a gentle sigh that we call an earthquake. Think of these seismic events not as violence, but as the planet's way of stretching, of releasing tension that has built up over time. Just as you might roll over in bed or adjust your pillow without fully waking, the Earth adjusts its posture to remain comfortable in the constant embrace of gravity and internal heat. Vibrations from these adjustments travel through the rock beneath you like ripples spreading across the surface of a pond. Scientists have learned to listen to this underground music using sensitive instruments that can detect vibrations too subtle for human senses. They have discovered that the Earth never stops singing, that even in the quietest moments, seismic waves are traveling through the planet's body like blood flowing through arteries. These waves carry information about the Earth's interior structure, revealing the hidden architecture of the world beneath your feet. The fastest of these seismic waves, called P waves, move through rock by compressing and expanding it in the direction of travel, like sound waves moving through air. They race through the Earth's interior at speeds of several miles per second, carrying news of distant earthquakes around the globe in minutes. Following behind them come the S waves, which move rock from side to side, creating the rolling motion that people sometimes feel during earthquakes. But the most beautiful of all seismic waves are the surface waves, which travel along the Earth's outer skin like ripples on water. These waves can circle the entire planet multiple times after a large earthquake, creating interference patterns as they overlap and combine. The Earth rings like a bell after being struck, its surface vibrating in complex harmonic patterns that can continue for days after the initial event. Deep beneath the continents, in the roots of ancient mountain ranges, the pressure and heat create conditions where rock can sing in frequencies that approach the range of human hearing. These vibrations are generated by the slow movement of crystals adjusting to pressure changes, by the expansion and contraction of minerals as they heat and cool by the microscopic adjustments that happen constantly in the Earth's interior. The ocean floors add their own voice to this symphony, transmitting vibrations from undersea earthquakes and volcanic activity across the planet's surface. The water itself becomes part of the instrument, carrying sound waves that can travel for thousands of miles through the deep ocean basins. Whales sometimes sing along with these geological frequencies, their songs harmonizing with the Earth's own music in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. In the deep caves carved by patient water, the Earth's vibrations create acoustic chambers where the planet's voice can resonate and amplify. These underground cathedrals ring with frequencies that change with the seasons, with the water table, with the slow settling of rock formations over geological time. Cave explorers sometimes report hearing sounds that seem to come from the rock itself, and they are right. The stone is singing, adding its voice to the symphony that surrounds them. Even the movement of groundwater contributes to this underground music. As water flows through porous rock and soil, it creates pressure changes that generate tiny vibrations. These acoustic signatures can reveal the presence of underground rivers, the boundaries between different rock layers, the slow circulation of water through the Earth's crust. The planet's hydrological cycle has its own rhythm, its own contribution to the ongoing composition. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by the flowing iron in the core, creates its own form of music in the magnetosphere high above your head. Solar wind particles streaming from the sun interact with this magnetic field, creating electromagnetic vibrations that can be converted to sound. This is the music of the aurora, the song of the northern lights, frequencies that connect your planet to the wider symphony of the solar system. As you rest in the darkness, your body becomes a resonator for these deep earth frequencies. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the water in your cells, all respond to the subtle vibrations that travel through the planet's interior. You are not separate from this underground symphony, but part of it, your heartbeat and breathing adding their own rhythms to the complex composition that never stops playing. The Earth's rotation creates its own musical patterns, as the planet's spin generates forces that influence the flow of material in the core and mantle. The day-night cycle creates thermal rhythms that pulse through the rock, while the seasonal changes in temperature and pressure contribute longer, slower melodies to the ongoing composition. Even the gravitational pull of the moon and sun creates tidal forces that flex the solid Earth, adding their own harmonic content to the planetary song. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you can surrender to this ancient rhythm that has been playing since the world began. The Earth's symphony continues beneath you, around you, through you, a lullaby of stone and crystal, of molten iron and flowing rock, of tectonic plates settling into their most comfortable positions. You are cradled by this music, supported by vibrations that connect you to the deep pulse of the planet itself. And in the hidden chambers beneath the Earth's surface, where pressure and time work their patient magic, another kind of beauty is taking shape. Crystal gardens that grow in darkness, adding their own geometric harmonies to the underground symphony that plays eternally beneath your dreams. In the deepest darkness beneath your feet, where sunlight has never touched and silence reigns eternal, the most exquisite gardens on Earth are slowly blooming. These are not gardens of leaves and petals, but of crystal and stone geometric flowers that grow with the patience of millennia, their beauty hidden in caverns and crevices until time chooses to reveal their secrets. Tonight, you'll wander through galleries where the Earth grows gems like roses, where patience and pressure collaborate to create the most perfect forms in nature. Imagine descending through layers of rock and time, leaving behind the world of vol. Green growing things to enter chambers where different kinds of life unfold. Here, in the mountain's heart, water seeps through invisible cracks, carrying dissolved minerals like seeds in a gardener's hand. Each drop holds the potential for crystal flowers that will bloom in darkness, their growth measured not in days or seasons, but in centuries and millennia. The first crystals begin as tiny nuclei, smaller than grains of sand, forming where conditions are just right, the perfect temperature, the precise chemical balance, the ideal pressure. These microscopic seeds float in mineral-rich water like spores waiting for the right moment to begin their transformation. When they finally anchor themselves to the walls of underground chambers, they begin a growth process so slow and deliberate that it makes the unfolding of mountain ranges seem hurried, layer by layer, atom by atom. The crystals build themselves according to mathematical principles older than life itself. Each species of mineral has its own architectural plan encoded in the arrangement of its atoms. Quartz crystals growing in perfect hexagonal columns, calcite forming in rhombohedral shapes, fluorite creating perfect cubes that seem designed by a cosmic geometer. These are nature's most precise constructions, built with tolerances that would challenge the finest human craftsman got in the cathedral-like chambers of limestone caves. Flowstone formations cascade down walls like frozen waterfalls, their surfaces polished to mirror smoothness by countless centuries of mineral-laden water. Stalactites hang from ceilings like crystal icicles, growing grain by grain, as each water drop leaves behind its gift of dissolved stone before falling to the chamber floor. Below, stalagmites rise to meet them, creating pillars that will eventually join ceiling to floor in embraces that take tens of thousands of years to complete. The colors in these underground gardens rival any flower bed. Iron creates crystals that bloom in shades of rust and amber. Copper produces gems of brilliant blue and green. Manganese paints crystal formations in delicate pinks and purples. These mineral flowers never fade, never wilt, never lose their brilliance to the passage of seasons. They are eternal blooms, preserved in their moment of perfect formation by the very processes that created them. In the spaces between rock layers, geodes form like crystal-lined eggs, their outer shells rough and unremarkable, while their interiors sparkle with amethyst cathedrals or agate landscapes. These hidden chambers remain sealed for millions of years, their crystal gardens growing in perfect isolation until erosion or human curiosity finally reveals their treasures. Each geode is a surprise package from deep time, a gift box wrapped in stone and filled with geological jewelry. The pressure deep within the earth creates conditions where carbon transforms into diamonds, each one a crystal flower that has endured pressures that would crush any surface material. These gems begin their journey toward the surface, carried in volcanic eruptions, traveling from the Earth's mantle to its crust in rockets of molten rock. They are messages from the deepest places, crystal postcards from the planet's interior, written in the language of pure carbon. Hot springs and geysers create their own mineral gardens, depositing layers of silica and other dissolved minerals in terraced formations that resemble frozen waterfalls or giant wedding cakes. These thermal features are like fast-forward versions of the underground crystal growth, where minerals precipitate from hot water in patterns that can be seen forming over human timescales rather than geological ones. In the hearts of mountains, where pressure and heat create the conditions for metamorphism, crystals grow large and perfect. Garnets form like red seeds in the matrix of schist and gneiss, their dodecahedral faces catching and reflecting light with geometric precision. Beryl crystals grow in hexagonal columns that can reach the size of tree trunks, their emerald green. Varieties becoming some of the most prized gems on Earth. The Earth's crystal gardens are libraries of conditions, each formation recording the exact temperature, pressure, and chemical environment of its birth. Scientists can read these mineral books like archaeologists reading ancient texts, discovering the history of the planet's interior through the arrangement of atoms in crystal lattice. Every gem tells a story of the deep earth, of the conditions that existed millions of years ago in places no human will ever visit. Deep in the ocean, where volcanic vents spew superheated water, rich in dissolved minerals. Underwater crystal gardens bloom around these thermal oases. Metal sulfides precipitate into formations that look like underwater Christmas trees, their branches decorated with mineral ornaments that grow in the pressure cooker environment of the deep sea floor. These are some of the most extreme gardens on Earth, thriving in conditions that would be instantly fatal to surface life. In the permafrost of polar regions, ice itself becomes a crystal garden, with water molecules arranging themselves in hexagonal patterns that create the intricate structures of snowflakes and frost flowers. These ice crystals are temporary compared to their mineral cousins, but they follow the same fundamental principles of geometric growth, each one a perfect expression of the laws that govern crystalline formation. The patience required for underground crystal growth is almost incomprehensible to minds accustomed to the rapid changes of the surface world. A single calcite crystal in a cave might take 10,000 years to grow the length of your finger. An amethyst cluster could require 1,000,000 years to achieve the size of your hand. These are gardens tended by geological time, where the gardener measures growth in millennia rather than months. Yet despite their incredible age and the extreme conditions of their formation, these crystal gardens are fragile in their own way. A single hammer blow can shatter formations that took eons to create. Changes in groundwater chemistry can dissolve crystals as patiently as they were formed. The Earth's mineral gardens are reminders that even the most enduring beauty requires protection and respect. As you rest in the darkness above these hidden chambers, imagine the slow, silent work continuing beneath you. In caves you will never see, crystals are growing atom by atom, their faceted faces reflecting no light, but perfect in their geometry nonetheless. In the hearts of mountains, pressure and heat are nurturing gems that may never see the surface. In the depths of the earth, mineral gardens are blooming in eternal darkness, their beauty a testament to the creative power of time and patience. These underground gardens grow without soil or sun, nourished instead by the earth's own heat and the slow circulation of mineral-rich water through the planet's rocky body. They are proof that beauty can emerge from the most unlikely conditions, that patience and precise conditions can create perfection even in complete darkness. And as these crystal flowers continue their ancient growth, they add their own silent harmony to the breathing of stones and the thermal expansion that shapes the world above. You might think of mountains as sleeping giants, perfectly still in their ancient slumber, but if you could listen closely enough, you would hear them breathing. Not the quick, shallow breaths of hurried life, but the deep, patient inhalations and exhalations that span entire days and seasons. A rhythm so slow and gentle that only the most sensitive instruments can detect it. As dawn breaks across a mountain peak, the first rays of sunlight touch the granite face with warmth. The rock, cool from the night's embrace, begins to stir. Molecule by molecule, the minerals within the stone start to expand, stretching ever so slightly as the heat penetrates deeper. It is the mountain's morning inhale, a barely perceptible swelling that spreads across tons of solid rock like a slow yawn awakening from dreams. You can imagine yourself as one of these molecules, nestled deep within a crystal of feldspar or quartz. Around you, your neighboring molecules begin to vibrate more energetically as the sun's energy reaches you. The space between you and your companions grows just a fraction larger, and you feel yourself expanding outward in every direction. It is not a violent movement, but rather like stretching after a long, peaceful sleep. This thermal breathing happens everywhere in the mountains simultaneously. The south-facing slopes, kissed by the morning sun, expand first. The northern faces, still shrouded in shadow, remain contracted and cool. This creates a gentle tension throughout the entire mountain, as different parts of the same rock mass expand at different rates and in different directions. It is like a giant, three-dimensional puzzle where each piece is constantly adjusting its size, ever so slightly as the day progresses and the sun climbs higher. The warming spreads deeper into the rock. What started as surface expansion gradually penetrates inward, millimeter by millimeter, hour by hour. The mountain's breath grows deeper and fuller as more of its mass joins in this daily expansion. By midday, when the sun reaches its peak, the mountain has inhaled as deeply as it can for this day. But mountains, like all living things that breathe, must also exhale. As afternoon fades into evening and the sun begins its descent, the process reverses. The surface of the rock starts to cool, and the molecules that had spread apart during the day's warming begin to draw closer together again. The mountain slowly contracts, releasing the thermal energy it had absorbed, breathing it back out into the cooling air. This daily cycle of expansion and contraction is like a gentle massage for the mountain, working on it grain by grain, crystal by crystal. Each day, the rock swells slightly and then shrinks back, never quite returning to exactly the same configuration it held the day before. Over thousands of these breathing cycles, tiny stresses build up along the boundaries between different minerals, along microscopic cracks and imperfections in the stone. You can picture these stress points as places where the mountain holds its tension, like the tight spots in your own muscles after a long day. Just as you might eventually need to stretch and release that tension, the mountain too must find ways to let go. Sometimes this happens gradually, as individual grains of minerals slowly work themselves loose from their neighbors, like seeds ready to leave their parent plant. The seasonal breathing is even more profound than the daily rhythm. As winter settles over the peaks, the entire mountain mass contracts more significantly, drawing inward as the cold penetrates deep into the rock. Then, as spring arrives and summer warmth returns, the mountain experiences its greatest expansion of the year, swelling outward with renewed thermal energy. These seasonal breaths are particularly powerful along the mountain's edges and surfaces, where the temperature changes are most dramatic. Here, where the rock meets the sky, the thermal stresses become strong enough to actually fracture the stone. You might hear the sharp crack of rock splitting on a particularly cold night, or the grinding sound of loose stones shifting as the mountain adjusts to a new season's thermal rhythm. This breathing creates a constant, gentle rain of particles, falling from the mountain's face. Each grain of sand, each flake of mica, each crystal of quartz that tumbles down the slopes was once held tightly within the mountain's embrace. Through countless cycles of thermal expansion and contraction, these particles have gradually worked themselves free, like leaves falling from a tree when their time has come. The mountain does not mourn this loss. Instead, it participates willingly in this ancient process of renewal and return. Each grain that falls carries with it the mountain's minerals and memory, ready to begin a new chapter in the endless story of stone becoming soil, soil becoming sediment, and sediment eventually becoming stone once again, as you settle into your own breathing rhythm tonight. You can synchronize yourself with this deeper pulse of the earth. Feel your chest rise and fall in its familiar pattern, but imagine it connected to the vast, slow breathing of the mountains around you. Your quick breaths are like heartbeats within the mountain's deeper respiratory rhythm, both of you participating in the same fundamental dance of expansion and release. In this gentle thermal rhythm, in this patient breathing of stone, you can find a profound peace. The mountains have been breathing this way for millions of years, and they will continue long after you have finished your own breathing. Yet right now, in this moment, you are both engaged in the same essential act of taking in energy and letting it go, of expanding with warmth and contracting with coolness, of holding on and releasing in perfect natural timing. Tonight, as you breathe in the warmth of your bed and breathe out the day's accumulated tensions, remember that you are participating in the same fundamental process that shapes mountains and moves continents, and that even in your smallest breath, You are connected to the vast, patient breathing of the earth itself, if you could follow a single grain of quartz sand from the beach back through its entire history. You would discover one of the most beautiful stories the earth has to tell. That tiny, translucent crystal currently resting between your fingers has lived a life spanning millions of years, traveling impossible distances and wearing countless different forms. Tonight, you are invited to trace this remarkable journey, backward through time and forward into futures yet to be written. Your grain of sand was not always small and smooth. Once, long ago, it was part of something magnificent, a towering mountain peak that caught the first light of dawn and held the last colors of sunset. Locked within granite, surrounded by feldspar and mica companions, your quartz crystal was born in the deep, hot chambers beneath the earth's surface, where molten rock slowly cooled over thousands of years. In that original mountain, your grain lived for eons, witnessing the rise and fall of ancient climates, feeling the slow creep of glaciers across its peak, and experiencing the patient weathering that you learned about in the mountain's thermal breathing. Day by day, season by season, the forces of water and wind and temperature change worked to free your crystal from its granite home. Perhaps it was a particularly harsh winter that finally cracked the rock around your grain, or maybe a spring flood that loosened the crucial bond. However it happened, one day your quartz crystal broke free and began its journey toward the sea. It tumbled down steep mountainsides, carried by rushing streams, bounced along riverbed rocks, and gradually shed its sharp edges as it traveled. Each impact with other stones polished your grain a little smoother, wore away its roughest corners, and reduced its size bit by bit. What had once been a large, angular fragment became smaller and more rounded with every mile of its journey. The crystal didn't resist this gradual reduction. Instead, it participated willingly in its own transformation, becoming more beautiful. As it became smaller, rivers carried your grain across continents, through forests and deserts, past cities that rose and fell while it continued its patient journey seaward. Sometimes it would rest for decades in a quiet bend of a river, settling into the muddy bottom among countless other mineral refugees from distant mountains. Sometimes seasonal floods would wake it up and carry it further downstream, adding more miles to its incredible journey. Finally, after perhaps hundreds of thousands of years of travel, your grain reached the ocean. Here, waves tossed it back and forth in the surf, giving it the final polish that created its current smooth perfection. Mixed with billions of other sand grains from hundreds of other mountains, your quartz crystal became part of a beach, a coastal dune, or a shallow sea floor, but your grain story was far from over. In fact, it was entering a new chapter that would be even more remarkable than its mountain origins. As centuries passed, other sediments settled on top of your grain. Layer by layer, the weight above it increased. Slowly, gradually, the sand bed where your grain rested began to experience pressure and heat that transformed it once again. The individual grains began to fuse together, their edges melding with their neighbors. Your quartz crystal became part of a sandstone formation, no longer a single grain, but part of a solid rock mass once again. The cycle had turned. What had been mountain became sand, and sand was becoming stone once more. Your grain had learned the great secret of geological time. Nothing ever truly disappears. Everything only changes form. Millions of years later, tectonic forces lifted this sandstone layer up from the seafloor. Slowly, imperceptibly, it rose higher and higher, until what had once been a beach became part of a new mountain range. Your grain of quartz, now locked within sandstone, found itself once again at high altitude, once again part of a towering peak, once again breathing with the thermal cycles of mountain life. But the story continues to cycle. Weather and water are already working on this new mountain, just as they worked on the original granite peak. Your grain will eventually be freed again, will make another journey to another sea, will become part of another beach, and will eventually form another mountain. The cycle has no beginning and no end. It simply is, eternal and patient and profound. This same story is being written by every grain of sand on every beach, every pebble in every stream, every crystal in every mountain. The earth is constantly recycling itself, taking apart its high places and rebuilding them elsewhere, moving materials from peaks to seafloors and back to peaks again, in a dance that has continued for billions of years. And you, your own body, contains atoms that have participated in this cycle countless times. The calcium in your bones may once have been part of limestone mountains. The iron in your blood could have traveled from ancient peaks to the seafloor and back again through multiple cycles of creation and dissolution. You are literally made of recycled stars and mountains and seas. Your very substance part of this eternal circulation of matter through the patient processes of geological time. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you can take comfort in knowing that you are not separate from this grand cycle, but intimately part of it. The atoms that make up your body have been on incredible journeys through time and space, and they will continue those journeys long after your current arrangement of them has dissolved back into the larger circulation of matter through the universe. In this vast perspective, your individual life becomes both infinitely precious and beautifully connected to everything else that has ever been or ever will be. You are a temporary arrangement of ancient materials, a brief but unique expression of the same forces that build mountains and carve valleys and move continents across the face of the earth. Tonight, as you rest, imagine your atoms settling into peaceful repose, each one carrying within it the memory of mountains it has built, and seas it has flowed through, and stars it has burned within. You are part of an eternal cycle that has no waste, no final endings, only endless transformations from one beautiful form to another. High in the Rocky Mountains, far above any current sea, there are places where you can find the perfectly preserved shells of creatures that lived in tropical oceans millions of years ago. These fossil treasures rest in limestone cliffs that now touch the clouds, yet they carry within their stone, embrace the memory of warm, shallow seas where trilobites scuttled across sandy bottoms and ancient corals built their calcium carbonate. Cities beneath sunlit waters. Tonight, you are invited to listen to these fossil memories, to hear the whispered stories that stones carry within their crystalline hearts. Each fossil is a message sent across impossible spans of time, a letter, written in the language of preserved life and delivered to you by the patient processes that lift sea floors into mountain peaks. Imagine yourself walking along what is now a high mountain trail, but as you place your feet on a limestone path, you are also walking across an ancient sea floor. The rock beneath your boots was once soft sediment, settling grain by grain onto the bottom of a warm, clear ocean. With each step, you are traveling both through space and through time, your journey taking you not just up the mountain, but back through millions of years of Earth's history. In the limestone around you, the fossil memories are everywhere. Here, the spiral shell of an ammonite, those graceful cephalopods that ruled ancient seas with their jet propulsion and intelligent eyes. The spiral follows a mathematical curve that appears again and again in nature, in the chambers of it. Nautilus, in the horns of galaxies, in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. This ancient creature, now turned to stone, participated in the same geometric principles that still govern the growth of living things today. There, embedded in the rock face, you can see the delicate fronds of crinoids, those sea lily that looked like plants but were actually animals, their stalks swaying in currents that ceased to flow when the continents were still arranged in completely different patterns. Each segment of these fossil stems tells of days when this mountaintop was covered by hundreds of feet of warm seawater, when the climate was so different that palm trees grew near the poles. the trilobites speak perhaps the most poignant fossil. Memories of all. These arthropods, with their compound eyes and segmented bodies, were among the first creatures to develop sophisticated vision. For nearly 300 million years, they crawled and swam through ancient oceans, their eyes capturing the light of younger suns. Now, their compound eyes have been replaced by crystals of calcite, yet they still seem to watch, still seem to observe. Permanent witnesses turn to stone dot. As you rest against the limestone cliff, you can feel the fossil memories surrounding you like a gentle chorus of ancient voices. Each shell, each coral, each preserved trace of prehistoric life carries within it the story of what the world was like when it was alive. The brachiopods whisper of tidal pools where the first complex ecosystems developed. The gastropods share memories of muddy lagoons rich with organic matter. The bryozoans recall colonial life in shallow seas where cooperation first evolved among simple animals. But perhaps the most remarkable fossil memory is the story these stones tell about the Earth itself. The presence of marine fossils in high mountain peaks reveals one of geology's most profound truths. Nothing on Earth's surface stays in the same place forever. The sea floors of yesterday become the mountain peaks of today. The continents drift like slow-moving rafts across the planet's surface. What seems permanent and unchanging is actually in constant, patient motion. These limestone mountains were not always mountains. They began as the bottom of ancient oceans, where countless generations of marine creatures lived and died, their shells and skeletons settling into thick layers of calcium carbonate sediment. Over millions of years, this sediment was compressed and cemented into solid limestone, entombing the remains of ancient life in its crystalline matrix. Then, tectonic forces began to push and fold these seafloor rocks, lifting them slowly higher and higher. What had been horizontal layers of ocean sediment were tilted and thrust upward, carrying their fossil cargo thousands of feet above the level of any modern sea. The creatures that had lived their entire lives underwater now found themselves in their stone afterlife, breathing thin mountain air and watching clouds form far below their ancient burial grounds. The fossil memories contain no sadness about this transformation. Instead, they seem to whisper of the wonder of it all, the incredible journey from seafloor to mountain peak, from living creature to stone guardian of ancient knowledge. Each fossil has become a teacher, showing us that change is the only constant. That life and landscape are always flowing from one form into another dot as you settle into sleep tonight. You can imagine yourself surrounded by these patient fossil memories. The limestone beneath the building where you rest may contain its own ancient treasures, its own messages from deep time. The calcium in your bones shares chemical kinship with the shells of creatures that swam in Paleozoic seas. You are connected to these ancient lives not just through time, but through the very elements that compose your body. The fossil memories offer a particular kind of peace, the peace that comes from understanding your place in a story much larger than any individual life, yet a story in which every individual life matters enough to be preserved in stone. These creatures mattered enough to the universe that their forms were saved for hundreds of millions of years, waiting patiently in rock for someone like you to discover them and wonder at their ancient beauty. Tonight, let the fossil memories sing you to sleep with their whispered stories of ancient seas and creatures that knew how to live simply and completely in their moment, just as you are learning to live simply and completely in yours. Their stone dreams have waited eons to be remembered, and now, in your quiet consideration of their long journey from life to stone to mountain peak, they live again in the theater of your imagination dot, and so your journey through deep time comes full circle, bringing you back to this present moment, to this room, to this bed where you rest tonight. Yet you return transformed, carrying within your awareness the vast perspectives you have traveled. The ordinary world around you now shimmers with new significance. Every surface and texture, alive with the stories you have learned to hear. The walls of your room stand patient and strong, but now you understand that they too participate in the great cycles of geological time. The concrete and steel, the wood and stone, all of these materials have their own ancient histories. The sand and the concrete may have spent millions of years journeying from mountain peak to ocean floor and back again. The metals and the wiring once lived in the heart of dying stars before finding their way to Earth's growing mass. Even the simplest objects around you carry within them the memory of deep time. Your pillow cradles your head with familiar softness. Yet beneath it lies the bedrock foundation of your home, and beneath that, the vast stone layers that record Earth's history like pages in an unimaginably long book. Miles below where you rest, the mantle continues its slow convection, moving continents grain by grain across the planet's surface in the same patient dance that has shaped and reshaped the world for billions of years. The gentle rhythm of your breathing synchronizes naturally with these deeper pulses of the earth. Your heartbeat, quick and warm, nestles comfortably within the slower rhythms of thermal expansion in the rocks beneath you, the gradual circulation of groundwater, the imperceptible drift of continents. You are held by these larger cycles like a child rocked in the arms of a vast, patient mother who has been singing the same lullaby since time began. Through your windows, the night sky spreads its familiar canopy of stars, but now you see it with geological eyes. Those points of light have been shining down on Earth's changing face for millions of years, witnessing the rise and fall of mountain ranges, the opening and closing of ocean basins, the slow waltz of continents across the globe's surface. Some of those stars have died and been born again in the time it has taken the Himalayas to rise from the seafloor to their current heights. The moon, Earth's patient companion, continues its ancient work of pulling tides across the planet's surface. Its gravitational embrace slowly stealing rotational energy from the Earth and growing more distant year by year. This same moon has watched over the entire pageant of life on Earth, from the first simple cells to the magnificent complexity of consciousness that allows you to contemplate these vast cycles of time and change in your body. You carry the minerals of ancient mountains, the water of prehistoric seas, the carbon of long-dead forests, the iron forged in stellar cores. Every atom that composes you has participated in countless cycles of creation and dissolution, has been part of other living things, other mountains, other stars. You are not separate from the geological story you have been exploring. You are one of its most remarkable chapters. Your muscles relax as you settle deeper into sleep, each fiber releasing the day's accumulated tensions and settling into the natural rhythms of rest and repair. This daily cycle of activity and restoration mirrors the larger cycles you have learned about, the daily breathing of mountains, the seasonal cycles of erosion and deposition, the vast cycles that transform seafloors into peaks and peaks back into sand. As your consciousness begins to drift toward sleep, you can feel yourself settling into alignment with these deeper rhythms of the earth. Your personal timeline, with its days and years and decades, nests comfortably within the geological timeline with its millions and billions of years. Both timelines are real, both matter, both contribute to the unfolding story of matter organizing itself into ever more complex and beautiful forms. The sounds of the night around you, the settling of the house, the whisper of wind, the distant hum of the world's ongoing activity blend into a symphony that includes the virtually silent creaking of continental plates, the whispered conversations of molecules rearranging themselves in cooling rocks, the patient work of water finding its way through stone toward the sea. In this expanded awareness, sleep comes not as an escape from the world, but as a deeper participation in its rhythms. Your consciousness, like a mountain stream finding its way to the ocean, flows naturally toward the larger consciousness of which it has always been a part. Your dreams tonight may carry you on currents that connect to the flow of deep time itself, allowing you to experience directly the patience of stone, the persistence of water, the gentle inevitability of change. As you rest, the earth continues its ancient work beneath you. Somewhere, a mountain is exhaling its daily breath, releasing the heat it absorbed from today's sunshine. Somewhere else, a glacier is depositing a new layer of sediment in a lake that will eventually become stone. Tectonic plates continue their imperceptible movement, building tomorrow's mountains grain by grain. The great cycles continue, patient and persistent and beautiful. You are held by these cycles, supported by them, embraced by the same forces that shape continents and move oceans. In your sleep, you participate in the Earth's own rest, the quiet periods in geological time when the work of transformation happens slowly and gently, without fanfare or urgency. Rest now, knowing that you are exactly where you belong in this vast story, that your brief human life is a precious and necessary part of the Earth's long dream of consciousness awakening to itself. The mountains will keep their patient watch, the waters will continue their endless circulation, and the stars will maintain their ancient vigil while you sleep. Held safe in the gentle embrace of deep time itself. In the morning, you will wake, refreshed and renewed, carrying within you the peace that comes from understanding your place in the eternal cycles of creation and change. But for now, simply rest and let the Earth's own deep breathing rock you gently into the most peaceful sleep you have ever known.